I can recall as early as age 11 experiencing this excruciating pain in my head. It felt like an endless drum beating against my brain. When it first happened, it startled me, and I can remember being in the classroom and my complete vision shutting down and not being able to communicate because it was just so excruciating, and just trying to catch my breath from the fear of what it was, also just trying to cope with the pain, and that carried all the way through college with me trying to figure out how to cope. And so when I began to see some of that same anxiety rise up in my children, I knew that I had the tools to respond appropriately. Hey, it's Dr. Z, and today I just want to share with you 3 strategies that I have found to be effective in helping my children to cope with fear and even anxiety. I want to start by saying that I'm not a medical doctor. I do not have a medical degree. So this video is solely based on my personal experiences from my own childhood, parenting my 3 children, as well as some of my professional experiences as a teacher. When my daughter was born, for the first 6 months of her life, I did not realize that when I was nursing her that I was giving her anxiety. I was giving her really the things that were causing her anxiety. I would hold her a lot, and that would be the only way that she would self-soothe, is if I was holding her. I would rock her to sleep, so really she wasn't able to self-soothe. I was the one soothing her, from lying with her to constantly nursing her, thinking that she wasn't getting enough milk, and so I was consistently nursing her to soothe her, and she was needing that because she liked to be soothed, but the very things that I was eating was actually all the things that she was allergic to. And so she had this internal battle going on in her body, and I wasn't helping, and so as a mom, of course, you can find that out and blame yourself, and I went through that whole array of emotions of I caused this and all of those things. But at the onset for me, it was my child is suffering and I want to be able to help her. And so that helpless feeling can come on us as mamas when we feel like something's going on with our children and we're just not sure, we can't put our finger on it. So one, I had to really advocate for being able to find out what was going on. So one of the first things is that we are our children's greatest advocates. And so getting to the root of what is going on with our children is critical. And sometimes it requires that we reach out to others who may have experienced things and be able to try to narrow down some of the ways. And so there were things I was doing, such as keeping a journal of the times when she would go through these spurts of just screaming, clawing at her face. She would have literally holes in her skin, splotches all over her face, from trying to just get comfortable. And so from swaddling to putting on mitts and all of that, none of those things seemed to work. And so I really had to begin to journal, and that was something that I did to really get a sense of what is going on. And so by the 3rd month of her life, I knew that it was something allergy related, because I could bring her into stores and she would going by the salad bar where there were eggs or certain things, she would just start vomiting. And so I was like, what is going on? And so I would seek out professional help, of course, but it was taking a while for us to get answers. And so I had to fight. I really did, as an advocate for my child, for her to get tested for allergies. So I was adamant about making sure that happened sooner, because I had the pictures, I had the journaling to show when she was doing these things. So that would be my first thing to say, is to record. I have some way to chronicle what is happening with your child. Is there a particular event that occurs that sends your child into a spiral? Is there a particular thing that they do when they're feeling or they're emotionally in a specific place? Are there particular times when certain behaviors are occurring? I had to track that because I couldn't wholly rely on the medical field to know what was happening in my own home. And I tell moms this all the time because I encounter so many moms that can feel that sense of helplessness, particularly first-time moms. If you've never seen certain things before and you're like, what is this? And you're feeling like those who may be giving you advice aren't necessarily helping right away the situation. It's not that they don't care. It may just be that they don't see what you see in your own home. You are the closest to your child, so there are things that you see happening that may not happen once they come to the doctor. And that's what was happening with me when I would get my migraines. They would never see the triggers that were leading up to it, so they didn't know what my mom knew. And so with my daughter, I had to track those things myself so that when I would go in front of a professional or a doctor, I had something tangible that I could say, this is what's happening, and this is why it's happening, and when it's happening, and these are the effects. The second thing that I would say is that I have had some friends who are in the field of counseling and who would use a strategy with students and those that I know about counting down, using the countdown method to kind of get the child's mind off of what is happening so that they can get to a place of being back centered to then be able to address what the issue is. Because for me, a lot of my anxiety was egging on my headache. So it's like one thing was a cause and effect. And so me not being able to calm right away would send me into this complete panic attack. My heart was palpitating, and clearly that's not getting the oxygen needed for me to just get to a place where I could help aid in getting what I needed with the headache. And so with my daughter, I knew that I had to get her to a place of calm. A moment where something happens and it's outside of her routine. She can immediately go to 500. I mean, ain't no collecting 500 after you pass go. She's already there. And so I know that because I have seen it before. So I have to give her strategies for being able to calm down. And one of those ways that I would do that is a song that I created. And really it's the countdown of really we're helping children to place their mind in a particular place so that it is not focused on the pain or focused on the fear or focused on what just happened, the emotional side to things. So for her, I would just use this song that was something I created and I use it for all my children. And I have seen it work to calm them down. They'll be crying and they'll still actually sing the song while they're crying. And I can see them just a little bit less anxious. And so it's just a 1, 2, 3, breathe in with me. And then they have to breathe 4, 5, 6, let it out real quick. 7, 8, 9, say I'm gonna be fine. When I calm down and ease my mind. Now 10, let's do it again. And then we repeat it. And I will look and pay attention to their responses as they're doing it. And the more I begin to see them to scale down at that heightened place that they were with what they were experiencing, then I know that it's working. And I've used that at the beach when they get sand in their eye. I use it when they've had to vomit and they're just not feeling good. I've used it when they are just at a heightened place of tension and they need it. So something that helps to bring them from this heightened place down. Simply counting could be simple. You know your child, so you will know best what that looks like. But if that song works, hey, use it. I have not used it as much lately, and I think it's interesting that my daughter recently had an episode where she literally was just going off the handle from hitting her knee on the stair. I remember having a child that I was teaching, and I can remember that his mom went to great lengths to make sure that we knew what worked for him. And so of course, as a teacher, you're like, yeah, I want everything that's going to work for your child. Tell me and I'll do it. But I was doing those things and others were doing those things, and we weren't seeing the results that the parent was telling us was happening with their child. And what I came to understand is that that was happening for a period. But then the child began to adjust and maybe become conditioned to using that strategy, and the strategy just wasn't working or as effective as it used to be. So I can see that in my daughter, where the calm down song is not necessarily something that we use as much. And so I've had to create more strategies to help her. So I would say, don't get stuck on feeling like you have to do the same thing all the time, and maybe that something else is needed in that moment. I took a bit of a sidebar, but I needed to say that because it may be that you find something that works and then all of a sudden it doesn't. And so a new strategy may need to be employed. So then my third thing that I wanted to share is that one of the things that really helps with helping my children to have a place for kind of dealing with things when they're not with me per se, because they won't always be with me to put these things into practice, is that we role play. We use scenarios with things would kind of naturally bring us to a heightened place to help them to be able to cope and think through some of their problem solving steps. And so scenarios as simple as if there were a fire in our home, what are the steps? Let's work it out. Let's talk through it. What are some places or some things that we could do? What are some strategies for just getting to a place of being able to respond, because it could be scary in and of itself. Setting boundaries for your children. That's a role play that we do when we're talking about being somewhere where you're uncomfortable, because with my daughter, she experienced that same sort of fear from going to the doctor that I experienced, because everybody wanted to shoot her with a needle. Everybody wanted to poke and pry at her. And so she was for a long time afraid of doctors and would scream as soon as she knew we were going to a doctor's office, because of some of the heightened associations that she put with going to the doctor and what they were there for and what their role was. And so it was like, they're not here to help me because I don't feel better when I leave them type thing. And so we've had to put scenarios in place. So we would role play, and I would make sure that my daughter's doctors were aware of some of the things that we do, because I needed them to understand you're going to have to talk to her. So sometimes you have to explain to others the strategies that are useful for your child, because they may be placed in situations where they're not with you, and you don't want to cripple them or enable them to feeling like they can only see you, be with you, be around you. That's not the way life works. We need them to be equipped to be able to use those same strategies when they are out from among us with others that they care about and love too. And so I would share those strategies with people. And so I remember her doctors being like, is it okay, for you to go ahead and let me check you? They would talk to her before she actually had to go through with something and explain to her what is getting ready to happen. I'm going to touch your head, or I'm going to feel around your throat. Those things are things that I had to share with professionals to make sure that they understood that this is a child that will go to 12 and you're not ready for it. So for you to be able to be at a place to help her cope as well. So those are 3 I'm going to share. There are more that I have, but if you're interested in learning more after this video, please let me know in the comments and I'll do a part 2 for this. But I pray that this video was beneficial to you. I hope to do a part 2 if it is something that you desire. And again, if you do have found anything useful, please like, share, and subscribe. And we look forward to be able to talk more through this process of helping our children be able to cope. Love you guys. Have a blessed day.